Okay, hello, year 12. Today's lesson is going to be about representation in online media. And what I'm hoping to do over the course of the next 10 minutes is to talk to you a little bit about how Zoella in particular is represented for online media. And we're going to be trying to apply three different theorists, or three different theories, I should say, today to some of Zoella's different texts. So we're going to look at one of her videos, we're going to look at her website, and we're going to look at one of her social media accounts as well. If you've got any questions about anything that I go through, obviously I'm going to be available live during the course of this hour. Please feel free to ask me, or if you're watching this at a later date, then feel free to email me any questions as well. So I want to start by looking at this image, and this is taken from a video that we're going to look at in a few moments' time, and it's a Q&A video. And as we can see, we've got Zoella sitting in what looks to be her lounge or her living area. She's sitting on a sofa. She is having a drink of some sort of tea. And in terms of representation, I think there's a number of different things that we could draw from just this one image alone. So firstly, in terms of traditional representation, we could look at what she's wearing. So we could talk about her outfit. And her outfit, to me, looks very casual. Often when we think of a vlogger, we might think of them wearing really glamorous clothes. But Zoella here, to me, is wearing quite a casual outfit in terms of the stripy top that she's wearing, her hair being up, etc. What I would say that this suggests is that Zoella is trying to communicate the fact that this is a really informal video, perhaps, that she's trying to kind of come across as just a everyday normal person, which is something which her fan base might appreciate. We could also talk a little bit about her environment. So in terms of mise-en-scène, we could be looking at the setting. And this is a really nice living room. And for someone who's currently in isolation, to have this much daylight pouring into your living room through, all these lovely windows that she's got, etc. This looks really nice. So this could connote an element of affluence. Perhaps Zoella is very successful in what she does. But what we can also see here, perhaps from the plants and the sofa that she's got, is that she's also someone that cares a lot about her environment. So she's put a lot of thought into the things that are in there. It's a very nice sofa, these large kind of plants which are overlapping everywhere. And this maybe suggests that she, as I say, that she cares a lot about her environment. Is she someone that's quite meticulous maybe in terms of constructing her setting? Last thing that I'd pick up on here is the thing that she's drinking. So she's drinking this, what looks like an enormous mug of tea. And she does in the video tell you what kind of tea it is. Peppermint, I think she says. And what I think this communicates is the fact that, again, she's trying to get across that this is quite an informal video. She's almost sort of like inviting the audience into her living space. She's like inviting them round for a cup of tea, inviting them round for a drink. And again, that's something which the audience would really appreciate and gives, I think, the overall image of what we got here. One is that we can see Zoella trying to be very kind of like humble and, just like a normal person in the same way that her fans are. But also when you dig a little bit deeper, you can see, well, this environment she's sitting in is not one that all of her fans would be able to attain. So perhaps there's an element of kind of perhaps not deliberately, but showing how successful she's been. And that's something which also her fan base might aim towards as well. So here we just got one still image from a video, but as you can see, there's a number of different things that we can draw from in terms of representation. So the first theorist that we're going to look at today is David Gauntlett, and it's one that we've looked at before. And we're going to think about David Gauntlett's theory of identity and how we can use this with online media. And as I hope you remember, one of the main factors of David Gauntlett's theory of identity is the idea of pick and mix. So what David Gauntlett argues is that we as audience members draw on the different representations that we see in the media to construct our own identity. So we will see certain things. Maybe we'll see something on television, we'll see something on the internet, we'll see something in a newspaper, and then we use all of these different things to construct our own identity. Now, when we're thinking about online media, this is a really useful theory. And the reason why is because, as David Gauntlett says, online media gives us this kind of open realm of possibilities, or what he describes as an open realm of possibilities. What he means by this is that there is just so much stuff on the internet. So it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere, the internet, anyone can access it, and it's also so vast so that you can draw from so many different sources in order to pick and mix your own identity. So in terms of your fashion sense, there might be a particular vlogger that you like and that you listen to, and you kind of buy clothes and do your hair or makeup based on them. you might be interested in football, and therefore there might be a particular vlogger who talks about football, and you might listen to all their things, and that might help you to construct your own identity based on that. Online media obviously is particularly good for this. And Gauntlet does actually write specifically about bloggers and vloggers. What he kind of argues is that vloggers and bloggers kind of give us their narratives through the form of stories. So they tell us things sometimes about their life or sometimes about the world, and these stories help us to pick and mix our own identities. This is a quote from him where he says, "We use these narratives to frame our experiences and bring order to the stream of stuff that goes on in our lives." He furthers this when he says that the stories that circulate in the media, they provide an opportunity for individuals to think about the kind of person they want to be. And what Gauntlet means by this is that bloggers and vloggers, they tell us their stories, they tell us the things that are going on in their lives. And through sharing all these different experiences, through sharing all the things that they kind of want to talk to you about, what they do is they let the audience take these things, and it helps the audience to understand the world around them. So, in terms of, if we take the specific example of Zoella, in terms of the world of beauty, fashion, etc., there is so much stuff out there. Zoella almost acts as a kind of filter for these things. So the fact that she tells people her points of view about this, what this does for the audience is it allows them to think about all the stuff that's going on in their lives and frame it in this particular like kind of Zoella shaped box. They can kind of cut through all of the stuff that's out there and just sort of listen to the things that Zoella says. And then this helps them to understand the things that are going on in their own lives. If you take a different example, maybe not even from Zoella or from the world of beauty, if you took an example, if I gave you my example, for example, of Arsenal, and I've said to you guys before that there's a particular blogger that I read and I listen to his podcast, etc., there is so much that's spoken about in terms of Arsenal. There is so many things out there, and it can be quite hard to sort of take all of that on board, and it can be quite hard for you to kind of like understand how you feel about certain things sometimes because there is so much information. But having a blogger and vlogger that you rely on, it helps you to understand all of those things that are going on. So for me, after an Arsenal game, I will go on and I'll read this blogger's particular review of that match, and then that will help me to understand my own interpretation of that match. And I will look at the reviews that he's given different players in that match, the ratings that he's given them, and then that will help me to understand what I thought about those players as well. And then that also gives me a chance to talk to other people about those. So I'm in a sense constructing my own understanding about Arsenal and my own understanding about a match based on what this blogger or vlogger has told me. And it's exactly the same for Zoella as well. So I'm going to give you an example of this, and I've got a little video that I'd like you to watch. The video is called Q&A, Life Choices, Trust Issues and Celeb Crushes, and this is where I got the still image from at the start of the lesson. I have sent you the PowerPoint for this, so if you can follow this link now, if you can't get hold of a link, if you just type this sentence, Q&A, Life Choices, Trust Issues and Celeb Crushes, Zoella, into Google, then it will come up. And what I'd like to do is just pause this video now and go and watch the first 5 minutes of that. So pause this video, watch the first 5 minutes of this video here. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to think about what stories she is telling the audience. How is she giving her opinions and her experiences about the world? And what would the audience think about these experiences? How would the audience construct their identity based on these things that they're saying? So pause this video, stop listening to me now, and go and watch that Zoella video, just the first 5 minutes, and then come back to this one. Okay, welcome back, guys. So there is a number of different stories that she talks about during these first 5 minutes, lots of different things. So I'm just going to pick out 3 examples of this just to sort of like illustrate this point to you. So firstly, she talks about her academic life quite a lot. And, Zoella actually, it sounds like she did very well in her academic experience, in her GCSEs, etc. One thing that she does talk about, she speaks about business studies. And when she first mentions business studies, she says business studies, lol. Now, this is quite a condescending thing to say, I think, about business studies. And it's almost suggesting that she didn't see the point of business studies and it wasn't a very important GCSE. which is quite interesting given that she is a business person and that she's someone who's made her life out of business. And to me, I was thinking, well, if I was someone who was a big Zoella fan and I was currently picking my A levels, that might put me off doing business studies. I might change my viewpoint about business studies based on what Zoella has said. Likewise, if I was someone that was already doing business studies, I might think to myself, well, actually, have I chosen the right A level here? Zoella doesn't think it's a very good idea. When I grow up, I want to be a vlogger. I want to do this. I want to start my own business. But Zoella doesn't say it's a very good idea. So I was thinking that just that little expression there, business studies lol, could have quite a big impact on what the audience feels. Something else that she does in this video, she talks about her family life and her friends, and she talks about how she balances her family life and her friends with her businesses, etc., etc. And I think this is quite interesting because she's obviously offering advice to the audience, but she also uses this expression, which is about becoming an adult. And I think this is really important because a lot of Zoella's viewers, maybe slightly less so now because, as we discussed before, I think her viewership is slightly older now, but certainly her traditional fan base were teenagers and young people who weren't yet adults but were in the process of becoming adults. And the way Zoella talks about some of these things and how they are important steps in becoming an adult, I think that's really interesting because, again, it's going to help those audience members to go through that experience for themselves, to talk about what they think it's like to become an adult. Hearing Zoella speak about those things is going to alter their perceptions of what it means to be an adult as well, and might kind of give them certain things that they're going to look forward to or at least watch out for. And then the last thing, which I think is interesting, she also gives us a little insight into the world of vlogging. So she tells us a little bit about what it's like to be a vlogger and what it's like to kind of socialize with different people, etc., etc. And again, I think that a lot of people that watch Zoella's vlogs have this little thing in their mind that one day they would quite like to be a vlogger themselves. And by kind of giving those little kind of tidbits of advice, talking about like what it's like to be one, I think that kind of really acts as something which is aspirational for her viewership. They would hear what she had to say, and they would think to themselves, and they would kind of like frame their opinions of what it's like to be a vlogger based on what Zoella is saying to them there. So I hope those three examples really illustrate what I'm trying to say here and what Gauntlet is trying to say, that through the representations which are constructed in the media, particularly in online media, audiences frame their identities. They create their identities, their thoughts and their experiences based on things that they hear online. Of course, you can criticize that point of view. You don't have to agree with everything he says, but I think there is some validity to some of his claims there. Okay, the next person I want to talk about is Stuart Hall. And again, Stuart Hall is someone that we've looked at before. And Stuart Hall is such a wonderfully easy theorist for us to apply when we're talking about representation. And this particular area of his theory, all he's really saying is that representations are constructed through signs and symbols. What he means by that is that the representations that we see in the media, they are constructed through media language. So all of those things that you were doing last week for online media about denotation and connotation, looking at different clothes Zoella might have been wearing or different colors that were there, all of those things can be used to help us to understand what meaning is being created there. That is how these vloggers create their representations. And when we're thinking about online media, and obviously for Zoella, we're looking at her videos, we're looking at her website, and we're looking at her social media posts. There are loads of different examples of signs and symbols that she can use to construct that. So I'm going to, hopefully, if this is working, show you a little example of this. If we go on to Zoella's website here. Now, Zoella's website has actually changed quite a lot recently. When I first started teaching this, she used to use her signature as her logo up here. It's only recently that she's gone to this kind of Z symbol, and already just from that little change, I'm thinking to myself, why has that happened, and what can I tell from that? And for me, when I look at this Z, apart from the fact it reminds me of Zara, when I look at this Z, I think it's quite a mature logo. Her old logo maybe was a little bit more what Zoella used to be like as a kind of like teenage, early 20s vlogger, but now Zoella she's recently turned 30. Now she's done that. Perhaps just this logo alone gives that element of sophistication, that she means business, that there's this element of maturity to it as well. If I look at some other things on this website as well, I could talk about the black and white color scheme. And again, that black and white color scheme in terms of representation, I think is quite formal. It's quite clean. What it also does is it also makes all of these images really stand out. So in terms of representation, you could argue that the reason that she's done that is, yes, because she wants to get across this kind of like very sleek, sophisticated look that she's trying to do, but also that it helps to draw out some of her other elements here as well. And if I just, if you look at the kind of tabs that they've got here as well, so we've got style, beauty, lifestyle, recipes, books. In terms of representation, what you could say perhaps is that this is giving quite a feminine outlook about things. The fact that she's got style, beauty, lifestyle, recipes, these are things which are quite typically associated with femininity. So perhaps you could argue that we're getting a real sense of her feminine side and her feminine outlook coming out for this representation. If I just click on one of these tabs as well, I'm going to click on beauty. And as we can see here, the sorts of posts that we have on here, they use a lot of pastel color palettes. Again, really typically quite feminine. We tried in-store makeovers, perhaps trying to kind of like appeal to her audience through that. And I think just overall, as you go through the website, what you will see in terms of representation is you'll see her femininity coming out both through the words that are used, through the colors that are used, but also through some of these images as well. So again, really nice, easy theory, this one, Stuart Hall's, just talking about the fact that representations are constructed through media language. So whenever you're talking about representations, if you want to kind of pick out a few different features, you can always refer to Stuart Hall to use as a theorist to do that. Some of the things that you can look out for on a website, because I'm going to ask you to do a task on this later, you can look out for the color, the font, the images, layout, design, but also, hair, makeup, anything at all you want to. You can pick out any of those details and they help to construct representations. Okay, the last theorist that I'm going to look at today, or it's not really a theorist, it's more of a theory, is the idea of self-representation. So when we think about traditional representations, let's say if we took cinema as an example of this, when films are made, the outfits that particular actors will wear have been chosen by costume designers, by directors, by producers, all of these different people. So the representations that you see in a film are not constructed by the actor, they are constructed by the production crew. Online media is different to this because online media, they can choose their settings, their costumes, their tone, their words. They can choose all that stuff themselves. So they, in a sense, construct their own representations. So rather than in traditional media, representations being constructed by someone else, i.e. the production crew, directors, etc., in online media, they do it all for themselves. And that is very unique to online media. You don't see that anywhere else in the media, in TV, cinema, music videos, all these different things. Those representations have been constructed by someone else. In online media, the constructions are made by themselves, by the actual content creators. I think what's interesting here is that what we need to think about is, yes, what you could argue is that this makes them come across as very authentic, because they can choose to wear whatever they want and they can choose to show you whatever they want. And you might kind of get a sense, for example, in that Zoella still image that I showed you at the start, that Zoella is a very humble person. That Zoella is, inside her living room, wearing her casual clothes, drinking a cup of tea with her hair up, that she's just kind of like there being all very, very normal. However, we need to question this because as well as showing us certain things, what they can also do is they can leave out certain things. They can choose what they do and don't want to show us. And this is very interesting and again, very unique to online media. In order to illustrate this point, I'm going to show you an example from Zoella's Instagram page. And again, I hope this is working. I hope you can see it fine. Otherwise, I'll have to re-record this whole thing, which I don't want to do. So this is Zoella's Instagram page. Just a little footnote about this. Don't forget, when you're looking at her Instagram page or her YouTube page, start going to Zoe Sugg. Don't go to the Zoella one, go to Zoe Sugg. She's slightly rebranded herself. She uses the Zoella stuff now for her business stuff, but for her more personal posts, she uses Zoe Sugg. 9.4 million followers, so just a few more than me. And if we see here, let's just take a couple of these images as an example. So as I said to you before, she's recently turned 30 and 700,000 people have liked the fact that she's turning 30. There's a little video here where she'll be, I don't know what she's doing exactly, but she'll be talking about turning 30. It's just okay. Excellent. So let's just if you take that example. So she has bought those balloons herself, or her boyfriend might have bought her for her. I don't know. Good old Alfie. She's chosen what costume she's going to wear. She's chosen where she wants to show this image. So all of these things she's constructed herself. It doesn't seem to me to be any coincidence that her outfit matches the colours of these balloons. So she has chosen a representation which looks aesthetically pleasing, which looks nice, which looks almost idealised and perfect to her audience. Not everyone is going to look like this on their 30th birthday, but Zoella makes sure that she does look like this through using these this colour palette which she has constructed herself. Again, if we go here, 96,000 people have liked this little post, and this is showing us some of the stuff that's in her kitchen. So we're just seeing some satsumas up here and some dried things and blah blah blah. And again, the reason why she's showing us this is she obviously wants to give us a little hint about her domestic side. She wants to show us that she's a really good cook and that she's very prepared. Her kitchen looks immaculate, beautiful white tiling, etc., etc. So if we just think about those two posts, what we can see is that through choosing what particular things she wants to show her viewership, their ideas about her are based on those things. So she can very cleverly manipulate her representations to make the audience feel a certain way about her. And as I said, this is completely unique to online media. This is not something which exists in traditional media, in cinemas, etc., in music videos, in TV programs, in any of those things. The representations have been constructed by someone else. In online media, they are constructed by the content creators themselves. What impact does this have on their representations? Well, what I believe is I think this means you need to question them. I'm not, going to say that Zoella is not the person that she's showing you, but I think it's important that we need to acknowledge that the people that we see in those YouTube videos and on their websites and on their Instagram posts, etc., we need to question them because they might not always be exactly as they show you, because they can choose to show you some things and leave out other things, and they can have that creative control themselves. So that theory of self-representation is that content creators construct their own representations, and therefore we do need to question them. Okay, I've rambled for quite a while now, so I'm going to give you the task which I'd like you to submit today. So the first thing I want you to do is to make sure that you write up all your notes. You can either handwrite these and submit a photograph in the folder that I send you, or you can just type these up. I don't mind which one, but as long as you upload them to the folder, that's great. And then what I'd like you to do is I would like you to gather 2 clear examples of each of these 3 theories that we've looked at today. So I want you to get 2 clear examples of Gauntlet, 2 clear examples of Hall, and 2 clear examples of self-representation. Now, these should all be taken from different parts of Zoella's empire. So you need to look at least one of her videos, at least one of her website pages, and at least one of her social media posts, okay? So in total, you should end up with 6 clear examples, and they should be different to the ones that I've shown. So don't just write about the things that I've shown you. Choose a different video, choose a different social media post. 2 clear examples of each one. In the example, you don't need to write much, just like a few notes about how it shows it, like why it proves Gauntlet or why it proves Hall. What you could actually do as an extension to this, if you disagree with any of these theorists, you might disagree with what Gauntlet has said, for example, then you could have one example which conforms to Gauntlet and one example which subverts Gauntlet as well. So if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. So just to reiterate, task to submit: 1, your notes from this lesson, and then 2, the application task. And the application task is for you to get 6 examples, 2 from Gauntlet, 2 from Hall, and 2 self-representation examples, all Zoella, and you need to look at least one of her videos, one of her websites, and one of her social media posts. If you have any questions, and I'm going to be live throughout the hour of this lesson, please feel free to ask me. Alternatively, you can email. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope that was useful.